Welcome to the 12-Step Recovery Evolution podcast. Visit recoveryevolution.co.uk for more episodes, helpful resources and links to our social media. Also visit the site for information on how you can attend a future Zoom session or workshop live. Thank you.
I think that I'm going to read you a few lines out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to do with step 9, which I think are really important. You should always keep these in the back of your mind when you're doing your amends. And I think that these are the things in the last couple of days that have been really important to me when I'm thinking about my amends. The first one is on page 76. It said, remember it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any length to victory over alcohol, drugs, whatever. Then on page 77, it says, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Another very important point. On page 82, it says, we feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. And on page 83, it says, we should be sensible, tactful, considerate, humble, without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anybody. Now, I think that they are very important points when you're thinking about doing when you're doing your amends. And I think that another thing that's important is good sponsorship. Do not go through your amends on your own because you'll be fumbling around in the dark. And I think that it's about good sponsorship. And I think that if you've worked through your steps from step 1 to step 7, I don't understand how there can be a halt, how you can be lost, because if you think about the steps, one step is getting you ready for the next one, is getting you ready for the next one, is getting you ready for the next one, is getting you ready for the next one. So I think that, steps 1 to 7, the admission of how my life was slaughtered, I didn't need much convincing. Step 2 was given a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I could see all the people around me in recovery. I could see that they were happy. I could see that they were full of joy and that they were free. So I could see the reality. Step 3 for me at the time was handing my will and my life over to these people. My higher power at the time was the meetings. It was my sponsor. It was other people in recovery that had recovery. So step 4 was starting to have a little look at myself, which was a very painful process. Step 5 was me sharing it with another human being, and step 6 and 7 were me being ready, becoming ready and asking for God's help, because I've already acknowledged that I can't do this on my own through the steps. When I'm going through the first 9, 8, when I'm going through the first 6 steps, I can see that I can't do it on my own and I need God's help. So that by the time you get to step 8, I sat with my sponsor. Honestly, I went through every single, I made the list with her. So we've got it off the resentment list, the fears list, the harms list, and the sexual conduct list. We condense it and we make a step 8 list out of all of it. And I want to talk to you about 2 or 3 of the amends. So I think that when I got to this point in my recovery, I didn't really have much respect for myself. There was no love for myself. There was no trust. There wasn't much forgiveness for myself. I didn't really feel anything, and I felt totally out of balance. I was very, very mentally out of balance, so mentally unhealthy. And so by the time I got to my step 8 and 9, like, I sat with my sponsor, and I've always been like driven from day dot. I've always been driven. I've always known that I made a commitment. I always knew that this was the last house on the block. This had to work for me. I made a commitment in my very early days that I was willing to go to any lengths to overcome my addiction. And I've always asked questions. I've made mistakes. I've been a pain in the arse. I've been really helpful. So recovery isn't about having a perfect journey. But I think it's an important thing is as well, it's like when you knew, be careful not to start making more mess before you've cleaned up the debris that you've already caused. We've created a big vacuum in our lives. We've created a big debt in our lives, and thankfully I knew it. I didn't need much convincing through the steps. I see it clearly, and I could see also that I was a really sick person. I wasn't a bad person. I was a very, very sick person, and I just didn't know any better at the time. So to talk about a couple of amends. So I've been resentful at my dad because he touched me up when I was about 13. I think that there was some stuff to do with my sister that came to light later. My sister's since passed away. She became an alcoholic in her later years, in her 30s, early 40s, and she passed away. And so just looking at my dad. So the two biggest hurts in my life was my mum and my dad. So my mum left me when I was 7, and my dad wasn't very well. So I've been angry and I stayed sore, and that's where I've been for all of my life, up until the age of 38. So, and I didn't want to feel that way anymore. In my step 6 and 7, I said, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to stop hating. I want to stop hurting. I need to find some balance, and I need to find some peace in my life. And thankfully, I had good people around me, a big AA community around me that kind of guided me and helped me. So my dad, I needed to start looking at it from an entirely different angle, rather than my dad done this, my dad done that, because my dad didn't just do that. You know, my mum left me when I was 7. My dad took me and my sister. He moved to England from Finland, and he brought us up. Now, he was a very sick man. He went to work really hard. He's always ironed my school uniforms, made sure I went to school. He's done a lot of good, my dad. So, but also when you look at it, you look at his history. So he was abused sexually and physically by his dad. They kept it a secret all their lives. They weren't allowed to tell anybody. That was a sign of the times. So I started to look at my dad from an entirely different angle, and I could kind of see, like, it wasn't all right what he'd done. It totally weren't all right what he'd done. But now I can kind of see that he weren't all right. So perhaps he was spiritually sick, just like me. And I think that people kind of, you know, if you talk about this social services and people like that, abuse is abuse. Like my daughter went to live with her nan because I'd emotionally neglected her. She was underweight and she'd gone to live with her nan. So who am I to judge my dad, who's done another form of abuse, when I've done it? Like, I don't believe that any of us are perfect, you know. And just because I have that view on my dad, it doesn't make it right what he's done. It's totally wrong what he's done, but I needed to see it for its reality. And I see that my dad is just a really, really sick man. Anyway, so I went and made amends to my dad. I went and met my dad. And in the big book, it says we have to put aside what they've done and clear up your bit. So when I went to go and do that, honestly, I was talking to some guys at the same time, and he was going, you've got to honour your mother and father. Because if I start rejecting my mum and dad, I'm rejecting parts of myself. My mum and dad made me. I'm more like them than I'd like to think, you know. And so I needed to go and honour my mum and dad. So I went to go and meet my dad. And you're never, honestly, I was waiting for him outside the Starbucks in Southend, and there was this bunch of Christians there doing their thing in the High Street in Southend, and you'll never guess what banners they were holding up. They were holding up these banners, and it says, "Honour your mother and father." Honestly, if you're not awake to the signs, then you're going to miss it. But anyway, so I went to see my dad, and I've seen him on a number of occasions, and I went to clear up my bit. Like, he used to wake up in the morning and read about me in the newspaper that I've got arrested for shoplifting, for prostitution, for street rob. You know, he used to read about me in the newspapers, and he was so upset, and it fucked him up so bad that he moved to Spain. I was supposed to get clean and move with him, but, you know, it never happened. So I went and cleared up my bit. And because I showed him love, unconditional love, which is what we all crave, it gave him an opportunity to look at himself. And like, he's never ever discussed it with me about me and him, but he has discussed his brother, who's also not very well and abused his daughter. So I know that while me and him are discussing his brother Derek, really he's talking about himself. And then he starts saying, like, I'm really confused, what happened when I was a kid. And he, honestly, it really makes me feel upset for him. Like, he starts pulling out photos of his dad, and he's really confused about everything himself. And I think that if I'd never showed him love and that respect, I don't think he'd ever have had a chance to look at himself or think about it. And I think that he lives in Spain. I don't find it easy being around him. I don't go and visit him and it's all cuddles and everything's okay. But I found the peace there with him. And I can honestly say that I really love my dad. He isn't very well. I've got a lot of good things from my dad. And so I think it's really important that I say that. But that's only was done through good sponsorship, good direction, and my own stability, and my own kind of, what's your intention? And my intention is, I want to honour my mother and father. I want to make some peace here. I want to let him know, Dad, I'm okay now. I love Jody. He wrote me a letter when I was in prison, and he said to me, I'm so embarrassed that Jodie's gone to live with her nan and blah, blah, blah. And that, I took what he said in that letter and I went and made amends for the hurt that he felt. I'm going to get some tissue in 1 minute. So I found some peace there. I found some peace there with him. And like I said, I email him once every few weeks. Hi, Dad, me and Jodie are okay. We're doing good. Everything's fine. Again, it ain't a normal situation. It's a very difficult situation. But I found my peace there. And I can honestly say that I love my dad with all of my heart. And he's got to live with all that hurt and hatred. He's got to live with all that. But I just want to let him know that, Dad, your little girl's all right now. And me and Jodie are back together and we're all right. And another one that's important is my mum. Like, my mum left me. That was a lot of hard work doing that, but that was going up and sacrificing myself and how I feel and being of maximum service to God and man. So I helped my dad to look at himself. If I'd have gone in and attacked him, you can't, you've done this, you've done that, it never would have got anywhere. It wouldn't have helped anybody. So again, with my mum, I lost my mum in May 2018, and it was the most saddest thing ever on this earth. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that since I've been clean, I've been going to see her every year. She's in Finland. I'm born in Finland. I go and see her every year, and she's in the midst of her alcoholism. And about 5 years ago, she had a stroke, which left her really disabled, and she ended up in a home where she wasn't allowed to smoke and she wasn't allowed to drink. And I still used to go and visit her every year just to hold her hand and just to tell her that, Mum, me and Jodie are okay now. I love you and I forgive you, and it's all okay. Again, I've got going on in my mum, because my mum, like, she didn't leave me because it was me. She did. When you look at the history and stop looking at it from a selfish point of view, my mum, she lost her mum and dad when the Russians invaded Finland. She lost her mum and dad, and then she was adopted by some really wealthy concert pianists in Finland. And then they died in a car crash when she was about 8 or 9. And then she was kind of lost in the wilderness. And I think she's also alcoholic. And so she hasn't had the greatest start in life. So if you think about it, my mum and my dad meet together. He was in the Navy and he was working on the ships in Finland. So they meet, and then they made me. So it's hardly surprising that I'm fucked up. So I think that I made amends to my mum. I went there every year, and her ex-husband, because she got married again while she was she got married again out there, and her husband was one of the highest ranking officers in the United Nations. And when they divorce, it's their honour that they have to still look after the sick wife. So he used to always make sure that I got over to Finland okay, pick me up from the airport, make sure I got to see her. So I'd done that for all of my recovery from day one until 2018. And then I was able to go and spend a few days with her in the hospital in Finland before she passed away. And thankfully he was with her the day that she actually did pass away, a couple of weeks later. And then I went back for her funeral, and it's like, no regrets. Honestly, I can stand here with my hand on my heart and say I've got no regrets, and I can honestly say with a pure heart that I absolutely adore my mum and dad. And I think that's really important for all of us, because our mum and dad's a part of us. Our mum and dad's a part of us, and we are like them. We're more like them than what we'd like to admit. And unless you go back, and I believe that if you suffered any form of abuse, it could be any sort of abuse. It could be sexual, physical, emotional. It could be any form of abuse. If you don't heal that, then you will become an abuser yourself. And that doesn't mean that you're going to go and sexually abuse anybody. It means that you're hurt and angry, and you're going to go and take it out on somebody. That's what that means. Okay, so I've been a seeker all of my recovery. I've never been one to sit still. I've always been like kind of a seeker. And anyway, I had the opportunity of going back to the prison where I was, and one of the SOs there, senior officers there, she was doing a uni degree at the time I was there, and she used me as her, I don't know what you call it. She was doing an essay on somebody, she was doing an essay on somebody, and she used me as the person, and her outcome about me was that I was too damaged, and I'd never get recovery because of damage that I'd had and the damage that I'd caused myself through my own addiction. So I went back to see her and a couple of other officers, and I'd done a talk in the prison, and I managed to say to her that I really regretted I'd always got on with the prison officers in the prison, but I was a little bit of a shit. I was still hanging out over C Wing with all the little scoundrels and bringing drugs in the prison when I was got a job outside the prison, and I was trusted, and I used to bring drugs in the prison and blah, blah, blah. And so I went and made amends to her, and she said to me, I'm so glad to see you, Sonja. And honestly, she cried, and she went, I've never seen anyone get better. And she said, I'm just sitting here thinking about my own life and about all the wonderful things you've done. I think I was about 2 or 3 years clean then. She went, of all the wonderful things you've done, I'm sitting here in the same job, miserable, and it's given me something to think about. It's given me anything's always possible, and kind of never sit still. So she had a lovely conversation with her, and I said to him, if there's anything I can ever do to put it right, then please let me know, and I'll put it right for all the help that you gave me, for number one, and number two, for the bit of a pain in the arse that I was in the jail. So that was another opportunity. And I remember the boyfriend that I had at the time. I've had 2 relationships since I've been in recovery. One was for 7 years and one was for 4 years. And that one, from the first one, he used to say to me, what the fuck do you want to go and make amends to the prison for? You've done your fucking time. And honestly, I'm like, mate, they really helped me. I can acknowledge that they really helped me and they was really kind to me. That's why I'm making the amends. And my recovery program tells me that I need to go and make amends to the people that I've harmed. And so then the next one, I wanted to tell you about the prison and also Jodie. So Jodie and Lindsay. Jodie went to live with her nan, her dad's mum, when she was 2. And I think Lindsay is a really good woman. She'd give you a last bit of bread. She'd share anything with her. You know, she wasn't even my mum. And at the end of my sentence, she brought Jodie up a couple of times to see me. And she really kind of supported me in a really loving way. And so when Jodie when I was 7 years clean, when I was still unemployed, I used to save my money up and I used to send her £10, £20 a month, whatever it was that I could, and I'd send it consistently to Jodie when I was first clean. I used to go down there once a month to Southend and go and see her. I'd get down there and she'd give me a hug and she'd walk out the door to go and be with her friends. But I continued persistently to go and do it. And then when I'd got a bit of clean time, I spoke to Jodie and I realised that I felt so guilty, which is healthy, and I felt so ashamed, which is also healthy. Like, I couldn't stop throwing things at her, laptops, this, that, money, this, that, and it was all about myself. It was all trying to relieve myself with her. And I think one day my sponsor said to me, Sonja, buy her a little diary and write down 10 things you love about her in it. And honestly, I've done it. And I gave her this diary and I said, Jodie, I just want to acknowledge to you that I haven't been there when you needed me the most. And the reality is she knows that. But I touched her heart and she knew, she could feel that was a heart-to-heart conversation. And she opened up the diary and had read it, and honestly, she broke down. She broke down. So with Jodie, I've had many, many heart-to-heart conversations. And now, when I was 7 years clean, she come to live with me, and her life totally changed and evolved and exploded when she come to live with me. And she's gone back to Essex now. But I think, like, my relationship with her now is, I'm able to say no. I'm able to not do everything she wants me to do if it's the right thing. And I can take the backlash. Before, I've always been wanting to keep her happy, give her money, give her this, give her that. Whether I think it's right or wrong or indifferent or it's helping her or not, I just want to relieve myself all the time and give her what she wants to make her love me. But I know that she totally respects and loves me, and I don't need to do any of that stuff anymore. And that took me to 9 to 10 years to do that, to be solid in my decision making. She'll phone me up and ask me for something, and I'll say, I think to myself, God, is that going to help her, or am I going to enable her? And like I said, it's taken me 9 to 10 years to be able to make them decisions, healthy decisions, rather than coming from myself. And with Lindsay, the nan, we've gone on a totally 360. We have the first few years that I was clean, I remember one birthday, one Christmas, I said to Lester, what do you think that I should get Lindsay? And in my selfish mind, I'm thinking, give her a score, send her a card. He's like, what's she worth, Sonja? And I was like, oh, and then I started thinking, oh my God, what's she done for you, Sonja? what's she made possible for you, Sonja? And so I said, I think I need to get her a nice bottle of perfume. And he said, yeah, and I think you should give her 100 quid and all. And I'm like, but I've done it every year. Nice, expensive bottle of perfume that she liked, and £100. This is when I was working, obviously. Now I'm working. So every year I put value on her. She doesn't feel very valued herself. She's got her own issues. But every year I've done that, and I started giving her money for Jodie, and I started sending money to Jodie. And even when Jodie came back to me, I continued it for about a year, giving her money. And then now it's come, because, yeah, we've gone round in a bit of a circle now, because now, again, with that relationship, I could take a gamble and be honest. I know that my heart's pure, my intentions are good, so I'm honest with her. But now she's not talking to me now because I've tried to help her with her son. She's definitely an enabler, and she isn't really helping her son. And so now they're not talking to me. Now I'm the enemy. But I remember actions speak louder than words to me. So I remember when I first got clean, and I used to go around there. I'd be sat in the front room at the table, and then Darren would come round, and he's a big old boy, 6'2", I think he is, and he's quite loud, and he's quite lovely looking, but he's just a bit mad. And she used to he'd stand at the door, and she'd literally stand in between us and keep him at one side of the house and keep me at another. Not obviously, but I could see her nerves, what she was doing. She didn't want him to come anywhere near me. So I think that actions speak louder than words. She doesn't ever say that, but I could see what she was doing. She was trying to protect me. So I know that she loves me, but I know that she's struggling, with her own stuff. So at the moment, she's not talking to me, but I love her, and I know that her heart is good. So there's another amends, which I think is very important as well. So there was an old lady that used to live next door to me when me and Darren was bang at it. Jodie was not born, and then she was born. We lived in a block of flats, and there was this lovely old lady, and I knew her daughter's boyfriend, her partner. We're all kind of in the same crowd, and we had the door kicked through regularly, and the police used to come through, and they knew Jodie by first name. Hazel Harley, the head of drug squad, she'd go in the bedroom and go and pick Jodie up. Hello, Jodie, it's only me, Hazel. And so we was a pain in the arse, and they used to say, well, if you're not selling drugs, why has there been 130 odd people knocking at your door today? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so when me and Darren finished, we didn't last. When Jodie was about 2, I think me and Darren separated. My life fell to pieces after that. I couldn't sell drugs successfully. I was heavily on crack. By that time I was into prostitution and shoplifting. I'd worn out all my resources. I was so known. So I was kind of turned to prostitution. I was just desperate. I was desperate for money, and I loved crack. Jodie was gone. Everyone was gone. I'd been to prison one time. Someone had done a house clearance on my flat. All the lovely stuff was gone, and so now I'm living in a crack house. What used to be a lovely family home. We tried our best. It was now a crack house. And this old lady that lived next door, I went in her house one day, and I stole her purse. And I think there was about £120 in there. I stole it to buy crack. And so when I come into recovery, I start looking at, I think it was my first step 4, I never mentioned that. It was just such a cringe factor. So all of your step 4 stuff, the majority of it don't really matter. It's really only for your benefit that you're doing that. Just waffling on about, I was resentful at my dad because he didn't have a bike, I was resentful either. But it's the really cringy stuff that really matters. And in my second step 4, I said to my sponsor, I couldn't even write it down. I was so ashamed. She said to me at the end of the step 4, she said, is there anything else you need to tell me? And I went, and I just said it. I stole money from the old lady that lived next door to me, and I felt like Oh, honestly, it was the most awful thing. Like, and anyway, so in my amends, so now I don't really know where this old lady is, but then I remember that her daughter was with my mate's dad and blah blah blah. So I've contacted my mate, and I said to her, look, I need to make amends to, I can't even remember what her name was now. And when I was writing the letter, she gave me the details of the daughter. When I was writing the letter, I'm so twisted and so delusional. I'm writing, I'm so sorry that I spent your mum's money. And I read it and I thought, you fucking liar. So I read it again. Now this is now being gut level honesty. I am so sorry that in the thick of my crack use and my addiction, I went in and stole your mum's money and spent it. I caused her grave harm by selling drugs in the house. Anyway, and this woman hated me. I was hated, as you can imagine, rightly so. So anyway, so I sent the letter. At the end of it is, I owned my bit, brutally honest. If there's anything else, if there's anything I can do, please let me know. In the letter was a £200 cheque. I think I stole £120 off of her. So if I give her the £120, there's no amends there. I gave her £200. I said, if there's anything else I can do, please let me know. Anyway, so I found out that the mother had died. And so I sent this to the daughter. And honestly, I just thought, I'd never hear from them again. It's cool. I'm just trying to do my bit. And then I got a lovely letter from the daughter. And she said, I'm so thankful to hear that you've got clean. I'm so pleased that I've just got the £200 cheque. I'm skint. It's helped me pay some bills. I'm going to put £100 into my mum's charity, my mum's favourite charity, and it's going to help me pay some bills. I wish you all the best, and thank you very much for contacting us. So after years of making right the wrongs, because it ain't about us, the amends ain't about us. If you do it with the right intention and you go and right the wrongs that you've done, then you get the reward. Then God's going to take care of your heart and you're going to have peace in your heart. I think that's a very, very, very important thing. And I think that if anyone thinks that they can move on with their recovery without going back and clearing up the debris, it's just never going to happen. You're never going to be free. You're always going to have them feelings of shame, guilt, like all the feelings of shame and guilt around my daughter, around my mum. You know, my mum tried to make it right with me in her own little way. She used to send me money over to try and get it. Yeah. So my dad, you have to make it right with the people. To be of maximum service to God and man. I helped my dad look at himself. I helped my mum look at herself, and they know that I'm fine and Jodie's fine. They're sure. My mum was able to go knowing that I'm fine and that I loved her and I forgave her. The prison know that they've done a good job for me. That you can imagine their jobs are relentless with people coming in and in the cycle, in and out, in and out. And yeah, so I'm just trying to think of amends also. We all want to be forgiven. We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. But I can honestly say that until you start giving them to other people, you ain't going to start feeling it yourself. So you need to start respecting other people's emotions and feelings. You need to start forgiving other people. If I hadn't started to forgive my mum and dad, I'd never feel how I feel now. I'd never be able to stand up with integrity and say, I've done every single amends that I'm conscious of. Oh, there was one thing that was quite funny. Not funny, but so then there's a girl in Southend that I know. She's an NA member, and I'm always on my Facebook page, CA and Amends and recovery and this and that and program. And so one day she inboxed me, I think it was about 3-4 years ago, and she said, "You fucking think that you've done your program? You robbed me when this time and blah, blah, blah. You and Keely robbed me and you took my money and you never, da, 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 da. I was hungry and, you know, my kids were hungry and da, 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 da." And she really kind of verbally attacked me on my inbox on Facebook. So I kind of, and I'd seen her in meetings and that in Southend, and I got to talk to her and I said, "Listen, mate," I said, "I can't remember all the harms that I've done, but I'm really grateful that you've made me aware. And I'm really sorry that I've done that to you. But if I'd have been conscious of it, I would most certainly have approached you. What I feel upset about is that you never approached me before this. Why wouldn't you have approached me and said, 'Look, Sonja, I feel really hurt. We're all in recovery. You know, it's really, really cool.'" And I said, "Plus, you know, you're saying there that your kids were hungry, but you wanted crack. We took your money that you wanted for crack, and we obviously went and spent it and didn't give it to you. But like, let's not get things twisted here. But honestly, I've got total respect and love for you, that you're in recovery, and I never would have consciously not come and made amends to you. But anyway, we're really good friends now, so I think that I've made every single amends that I'm consciously aware of. And in the promises, it says when you're halfway through, remarkable things happen. And I think that when I was halfway through them amends, I think my mental health started to balance. I started to feel okay with myself, and I started to feel okay with my brothers and sisters around me and the world around me. And from, you know, from having a lifestyle of crime, committing crime, I've just had I can't even imagine it. I can't imagine it. And yeah, I can't even imagine living like I did. And I was just thinking this morning about this talk, the step 9 stuff, and I was thinking about my mum and my dad, and it's, you know, it's coming up to my mum's 2 years, and I don't know, last year I went to Finland to celebrate her, to kind of, yeah, celebrate her first year of being out of suffering. And I'll go and see her ex-husband and her best friend, and it just kind of really made me emotional. And I think that through me working my program, doing the best that I can, I don't think anyone that I know here that in recovery, apart from Danny Stimpson, I don't think anyone could comprehend my mental state in my addiction. I feel really blessed and feel really lucky that I'm only interested in helping people come into recovery and staying in recovery. The message that I carry holds depth and weight. I ain't perfect. I don't talk nicely like I wish I did, you know. I talk how I talk. I try my best not to hurt people. My only interest is to drag people into recovery, encourage people to come into recovery. If you don't want to come into recovery, that's fine. But that my only interest really is about getting people into recovery. And I feel really blessed. I feel really lucky. And I think that I'm going to finish on this. So, step 9 amends. It's your life, it's your integrity, and your recovery. Value it. Go through it one by one with good sponsorship. Make sure you work through all of your amends. If you don't do that, then you're missing out on the fruit of the program, and you ain't been through the steps. So don't delude yourself that you have. So step 9 amends is where the magic happens. I've had some wonderful Jodie's just Snapchatting me. So I've had some wonderful times in my recovery. So I think don't miss out, do your amends and get help. That's it.